This is unbelievable. Stephen,
Hey,
good to see you.
It's good to see you, my friend. Yeah.
We didn't expect to be doing this. You didn't expect to be doing this.
I certainly didn't. Yeah.
All I can say is thank you very much for entertaining it, because I probably messaged you 48 hours ago. Now, I knew you'd be in Geneva because we've just had Geneva watch days, but you didn't know you were going to do this. So thank you very, very much.
Always happy to be here.
Before we move on to your watches, and a little kicker, by the way, guys, because Stephen might be the very first guest that has not only adhered to the two-watch rules, guidelines, but he's brought a little kicker along, which we'll get to later on in the episode. Tell us, Geneva Watch Days, because we're coming just off the back of it.
Yeah, for sure.
What were your highlights? What was the energy like?
What were my highlights? I thought the energy was good. I think it was good, but realistic. And hot. Yeah, it was. Yeah, don't even get me started on that. I live in Los Angeles, and I thought it was hot. Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good but realistic, which I think is important. I think at Watches and Wonders a few months ago, everybody was still kind of in this like, we don't really want to say. Like, we don't know how the industry's doing. It's going to be fine, whatever. I think now people have started to realize, okay, it's not what it was the last few years, but I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy that everybody's realized things aren't what they were during the boom times, during the pandemic. But at the same time, knowing that, everybody can be realistic, they can readjust, they can say, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, and we can all move forward. And I think the energy at Geneva Watch Days, which this was my first time there, it was really an atmosphere of cooperation, of camaraderie. There wasn't the same sort of like competition and politics that I know you're very familiar with between the brands, but it was nice. It was good to see everyone and in a slightly more relaxed environment than the usual shows.
I was there for a few days before the show, and unfortunately couldn't stay for the actual show itself. But what I really felt was actually that it filled the gap that Watches and Wonders Watches and Wonders now doesn't fill, which is taking watches into the city of Geneva, for the people to be able to come into and enjoy down onto the lake. It just felt like it was a slightly different vibe. Some of the same brands, like some of the same brands, but probably more an extension on the smaller indies joining Geneva Watch Days. Led primarily, though, interestingly, and I find the sort of strategic aspect interesting, by Bulgari and a founding group, Moser, MBNF, Breitling. It's really, really interesting who's there, who's not. I've got no doubt it will grow from strength to strength, because the last few years it certainly has.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm now fully expecting to come every year. This was my first year. I didn't really know what to expect. And I would imagine now, in addition to planning on being in Geneva in April, I should plan on being in Geneva in August. I think it's, at this point, it feels kind of like I can't miss. Like, I think if you're not there, you're missing out.
Agreed. Top watch or two, just before we move on?
Top watch or two. Of new things, the new Daniel Roth is amazing. Just really special. And the fact that they're basically building a small boutique independent brand inside of LVMH, I think is super cool. And the people who are building it really are building it like a small independent. I had a chance to see our friend Sylvain Berneron again. His new pieces are incredible. I wish I could put a deposit down on all of them. I'll take one of each.
How good in the metal? Because I've seen photos everywhere, but I've never handled one.
They're incredible. I mean, Sylvain's got a decade plus experience doing this. The fit and finish is awesome. The design is really sharp, and the watchmaking's great. I mean, let's not forget they look pretty, but they also have solid gold movements, shaped movements. The larger models, the original ones, have a complication that reverses the hand stack, so that the hour hand is on top of the minute hand, so they never block each other. It's great. It's really good. But then I got a chance to see watches that you just don't get to see very often, like the new stuff from Fleming was really cool. Getting to see Bulgari's high complications was cool. It's really a nice opportunity to see everyone and go hands-on. And for me, a nice chance to see the folks I work with kind of all in the same place, which is nice, because I living in Los Angeles now, I don't get over as much, so I don't get to see everybody quite as often. We should touch on what you're up to now, actually, because for a lot of people out there, who follow you frequently will know that you've moved on and that you run your own agency now in LA, so out of New York. But give us a brief on what you're up to. Yeah, so I moved from New York to LA during the pandemic. I left the media business, let's say, and Yeah, I have a marketing and creative agency now called Rime and Reason, and we work with brands in the watch space, outside the watch space, but a lot of really fantastic watch brands. And we work on everything from strategy to marketing to events to creative photo and video, that kind of stuff. And it's great. And I'm really fortunate to work with brands from, the biggest brands on the planet with big recognizable names. Many of whom made me sign NDAs, so I can't say their names right now. I really don't need to get any phone calls from lawyers, but down to small independents. So, I mentioned Fleming. I work with those folks. The folks at Chapek, Resence, which we've worked on together. Yeah. And it's really great. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate that I mostly get to work with people I consider friends. Mostly people I've known for, in most cases, at least 5 years, some of them 10 plus years. And it's wonderful to be able to take all of the things I was able to learn on the media side of the business and use those to now help people and to help people grow their brands and grow their footprints and connect with their customers. So it's a really lucky position to be in. And I came out of Geneva just feeling like really fortunate to have the network of folks I'm working with and with good energy and good things on the horizon. So can't really complain.
For those of you who aren't aware, Steve and I have actually completed a project that is now online because we sort of held back from talking about it too much because it wasn't available to purchase online. But now it is at restaurants.com. You can buy a catalogue raisonné that we spent the best part of a year working on together. Yeah. And without your expert support, we would not have delivered because, quite frankly, you're an operator, Stephen. You're an operator. Everyone out there knows that. And I was certainly very grateful to have you alongside me to do it. But it's a satisfying object. In fact, we don't have it here, which is a shame. But I should have
hard to find. Like, I only have 2 copies at home, and I have people ask for them, and I'm like, go order one. Like, I don't have one to give you, but yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Even if you don't own a restaurant, you can buy the book, and it's a joy because I feel the one thing beyond anything that we were fortunate enough to be able to deliver on was capturing the essence of the brand in a handheld log.
Completely, and I'll speak for myself. Like, I learned so much working on the project. I've been familiar with resins since the beginning. I mean, I guess it was a 0 series was the first resins I ever handled. I've known Benoit for 12 or 13 years at this point. And still, while we were working on the book, even 9 months in, we'd get an email with information and pictures of a watch. And I'd say, I had no idea this existed, whether it was a piece unique or a small limited edition. So it was really nice to really be able to give the full picture while we're lucky enough we have Benoit, we have all of the watchmakers. We can actually capture that information, whereas if we tried to do this 10, 15, 20 years from now, a lot of that I think would be lost. And I think a lot of brands struggle with that. So it's nice that we were able to kind of capture it on paper.
We were commenting before we recorded today about our French being terrible, both of us.
Embarrassing.
Catalogue raisonné, I believe, originated in the art world where an artist was someone wanted to capture that history of work in a singular place. And that's what we've got there with Ben. And as you say, actually in the watch world, it's all too frequent that we lose a lot of people and information over the years and never really gets captured. So it's satisfying in that sense.
Yeah.
Listen, let's move on to some watches because I know that's what people want to see.
Talk about watches.
You brought 2 with you.
I did.
Which one would you like to start with?
Let's start with the older of the 2. Let's start with the Grand Seiko.
But is that also not the newer of the 2 for you? Did you not get that more recently than that one?
It is the newer of the 2 for me, yes. So this is a 56 GS. It's a vintage Grand Seiko. It's from about 1971, based on the serial number. And I picked it up, I guess it would have been October of 2019. It was my first trip to Tokyo. Wanted to go to Tokyo since as far back as I can remember, since I was a little kid. And I finally made it. I made it because I was working on setting up Hodinkee Japan, which, by the way, if people don't follow, they should. Love those guys. They're brilliant. And they've
wonderful man.
Incredible. And they've done such an amazing job growing it in that market and creating their own kind of special environment. Like, it's not just Hodinkee in Japan. It is Hodinkee Japan. It's its own thing. It's really special. But I was on my first trip to Tokyo and I had one afternoon free. I mean, we were working super hard to get this thing off the ground and ready for launch. And I had one afternoon, and by coincidence, Grand Seiko had a bunch of their American collectors there on a trip to visit the different manufacturers, and we all happened to be in Tokyo at the same time. So my friends JP and Eric and I got together. We had the only time the three of us were free. It was pouring rain, and it had gotten dark early, and so we're wandering around Ginza in the dark and the pouring rain. I have no idea where I'm going. The two of them do. And they took me to this little underground shop. I mean, it was 2 flights of stairs down off the street, on a side street. I mean, the whole thing couldn't have been bigger than maybe 10 square meters. I mean, really small. And I found this watch, and it was in pristine condition. As far as I can tell, I don't think it had ever left Japan for, coming up on 50 years at that point. And I was able to pick it up. It's got the original crown. The case back is nice and clean. I mean, it's as pristine as you could ask for. It was relatively affordable, and I love it. To me, it's the little time capsule of my first trip to Japan and a weird afternoon in the rain with my friends. It's like everything you could want from a vintage watch in terms of emotional value.
Did you go in wanting this model?
I had a couple in mind that I wanted. I wanted something with the faceted Grammar of Design style case. A 44 GS would have been great too. I even could have been into a 62 GS, which isn't generally my favorite. I love it, but it's not amongst my favorite. I would have done maybe a first if I had found one of those, a gold first. But yeah, this was on the short list, and it's in great condition, which with these cases is, to me, everything. Like, these cases are all about, they're all about the geometry and about the polishing. And I often find myself when I'm wearing this watch doing what you're doing now, which is I take it off. I'm running my fingers on, looking at it from different angles, because it's a bit of a cliche to say it, but it has architecture to it. It really feels like a three-dimensional structure.
It's a case unlike any other.
Yeah.
Do you know what it does remind me of a little bit? Is actually the Zenith Defy case in some respects. That's more of a modern iteration on this.
Absolutely. That's I had never thought of that, but you're absolutely right.
It's got a sportiness to it, and it's got an elegance to it, which is a difficult thing to achieve.
Agreed.
Proportionally beautifully done as well. What, 36, 35, 36?
Yeah, it's like 36-ish, I think.
Really, really nicely done. And a couple of things. The dial is a wonderful sort of eggshell, off-white. Probably started life a little bit lighter than it is now.
Probably.
The hour hand seemingly has the sort of steel perimeter versus the minute hand, which doesn't. That's interesting.
It's a very simple handset, and you talk to a lot of Grand Seiko collectors, and they'll say, "Oh, it's all about the mountain hands. They're faceted. They have the polishing, the brushing, all these things." But I actually think these hands work great, and I like that the markers, they're very skinny, but they have some verticality to them. They really stand off the dial, and so you get little bits of play of light and shadow. Not quite like a VFA, but
And
close.
are they black? Because there's a little bit of...
They are.
They're black, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like a very unusual dial configuration for Grand Seiko. I mean, it was common on this model. This isn't like a rare model by any means. But yeah, to have that contrast between the white dial, the black markers, the black hands, as you noticed, one of them has the reflective kind of border. It has a quick set date, which is nice. It makes it much easier for setting it. So I find I actually wear the watch more because, if you have a vintage watch with a date, often it's like, shit, it's going to take me 20 minutes to set this thing.
And no one else will know during the day, but there are a few things that are more frustrating as the owner to know that it's not right.
Yeah, same.
And no, you're absolutely right. And I actually love the balance, the proportions are just wonderful. When you look at the size of the logo, the automatic, and then the GS at the bottom, it's all in order. It's all in order, which totally typically Japanese. It's considered, delivered beautifully. And then the gold coin on the back.
Yeah, the little medallion. And everything's nice and crisp and clean. And it came with an old strap, not the original strap, but I have with it a vintage Seiko strap. It's black crocodile. I don't really wear it on that, but I have it.
This is perfect. Nice. This is absolutely perfect.
I love. To me, it like softens the whole thing a little bit and gives it some warmth.
And the grain on it as well is beautiful. It's something that I always look for when I'm looking for a leather strap. That bit of texture.
I agree.
Controversial point. Something I've been thinking a lot about is the contrast stitching. When you notice it, it's quite obvious. For a lot of people, though, immediately it's not. And then the box, sometimes, I go for box, so a little close at the top versus open. Do you ever think about those stuff? Do you ever think that about straps?
I do. And I mean, I'm lucky that when I was working at Hodinkee, there were
access to
straps
everywhere.
everywhere. I mean, for years I was packing straps every morning for customers, so I've spent a lot of time handling straps over the years. But so I'm lucky that I have a bunch of different options, and I'll swap these in and out. I have a strap similar to this that's navy blue that I put on it sometimes. I haven't put this on a NATO or anything like that before, but yeah, I've swapped the straps out a couple times on it.
The beauty of that dial color and the steel case is that you can almost go for anything and know that you're safe.
Everything works. Yeah, I mean, the limitation is more that I tend to have a more conservative palate and restrained palate, so it's a me problem, not a watch problem. But yeah, I tend to not buy watches if they're really rigid, because I get bored with things, and I'm less likely to want to wear it long term if I can only wear it on one or two straps.
Agreed. You've also got a modern Grand Seiko that's not here.
Where
are
I have two modern Grand Seikos, yeah.
Where are Grand Seiko right now? Because for us in the UK, it's a curious brand. I look in on the US and I see you guys are way ahead, I think, in the process of adopting them. And I think what you guys did there probably goes a long way to showcase why that's the case.
Yeah.
But here we still feel, I think, that we're generally behind in appreciating what they do.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky, right? Like they were, when Grand Seiko for a long time contracted and they were only available in the domestic market, when they started to re-expand, the US was one of the first big markets they went into. So we've got, I think, somewhere between 5 and 10 years on you guys in terms of market exposure, market development. So we're lucky in that way. We're also fortunate that, those two guys I mentioned, JP and Eric, along with a handful of other guys, RJ and some others, there's some really amazing collectors.
There's some scholarship out there.
Yeah. And they're really scholars, and they're really passionate. I mean, nobody collects Grand Seiko who isn't passionate about it. It's not like a thing you stumbled into. So we're lucky to have those guys do a lot of work to educate the community and to grow the presence. As far as the product, I'm just a fan. I just like it. I have a Shunbun, the sort of pink dial automatic spring drive on the bracelet. And then I also have a watch made for the GS9 Club, the SBGY 023.
Jesus.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
impressed.
the number.
I'm impressed.
That's the number. I should know that.
The reference numbers.
And that's a hand-wound spring drive in a slim case with a sort of textured, like warm gray dial. The dial's actually almost the color of this strap, but a little darker.
There's no two ways about it. The proportions and the dials have been on point for a long time.
Yeah.
And they are differentiated from anything else in the market as well.
100%.
And if you like simple and you like obsessive detail, obsessive finishing, and something a bit interesting, because that's what the spring drive is, then I think it's got something for you at a reasonable price point, which is always wonderful. And probably a brand that's going to end up benefiting in the next couple of years as people sort of are maybe more considerate about where they put their money in purchases.
I think so too. And I think they have a huge advantage that is going to sound so stupid when I say it, but it really is that they're Japanese.
Yeah.
They're not Swiss.
No.
And, I love the Swiss. I love Switzerland. I love Swiss watches. But sometimes you want something
Swiss
different.
chocolate?
I can't. This is a whole thing. I can't eat chocolate. No, yes, but also I have like a migraine thing. That's a whole thing.
No.
I can't eat chocolate. It's
Swiss
a bummer.
cheese? Swiss cheese?
No, I can't.
No.
Okay. I know, it's a bummer.
Okay.
I know. I go to Switzerland and I'm like,
enjoying...
I can't eat dairy or chocolate. And they're like, okay, so you can leave,
So you can indulge in the watches, but that's about it.
Yeah, but it's nice. I mean, the watches have a different personality.
Entirely
they have a different perspective. And it's cool. I mean, sometimes you want to buy something that really has that kind of like traditional Swiss watchmaking feel. And sometimes you want something different. And so you almost get the spirit of like an independent brand, despite the fact that it's ultimately coming from the Seiko Epson Corporation,
They do make some printers on the side and some
printers.
Ink cartridges, but that's a side note. And they've got fascinating business practices, I understand. I've never been invited to the trip because every year or two, I think a journalist from each market gets a chance to go to the 2 factories or 3, and you get to see the operation.
Sadly, I've been invited twice, and I've had to back out twice because both times I was invited, I was in the midst of quitting my job. And so I got invited and had to back out, which is a bummer.
Someone else stepped in. We won't comment on who stepped in there. Talking of Swiss watchmaking.
Yeah, of course.
And what we have here in the second watch is a combination, at least in my mind, of actually German and Swiss watchmaking coming together.
Yeah, I
agree. In a unique combination.
I agree.
Anyone who follows you online will know that this is a watch you love.
Yeah.
Probably a little bit surprising in many ways because you've got a considered, maybe a sort of a vintage slant on what you tend to like.
Yeah.
But this is the one collab maybe that during your time at Hodinkee probably was the one that spoke to you the most. I'd say.
Yeah, it was. It's I'm trying to think. It's the only of our, I would say more serious, higher price collabs that I purchased and added to the collection.
Yes.
I love it. I, funnily enough, didn't purchase it originally. Like I didn't get it from Hodinkee.
No.
I got it from IWC like 3 months after. I mentioned that I kind of regretted not doing it, and they helped me get one.
That's a story. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's worth it though. I love it. I mean, I absolutely love this watch. I would say it might be the watch I wear the most overall. It's, you can wear it anywhere. You can do anything with it. I love traveling with it. First of all, the case is ceratanium, which is a proprietary IWC material. Basically, they melt down titanium, put in zirconium, remake the bars, cut it, make the cases, and then they bake them, and they turn this black color.
And you can feel it. It's a very different texture to ceramic.
It is. Yeah,
it's got a bit more graininess to it.
Exactly. So
and the color, funnily enough, is also slightly different, side by side.
It's almost like a super dark gray. It's not really a hard black. It's a soft black, I would say.
And that's why they have gone for this thing about the Top Gun jet black and the Pantone accreditation for jet black, because that is black.
True.
This is not, which is really interesting.
And the nice thing is, it's really hard to scratch. There's not a single scratch on this watch, and I wear it all the time, and I'm not easy on my watches. Not because I'm doing anything cool, but because I'm just clumsy and indelicate. But if you do scratch it, the color goes all the way through. So there's no scratching through a coating or anything like that. And I also like the fact that despite it being an IWC, from a distance it doesn't look like anything crazy. So I can walk around the streets of London or Paris or Geneva or LA or wherever. I'm not going to get mugged for this watch, which is nice. So I can wear a serious watch without having serious risk, which is nice. In
many ways, I shouldn't be surprised that you liked it, because with your appreciation for vintage watches, you can see here with these markers and this handset, there is it's not Fotino, it's just the colorway that works nicest with the black dial and then the white numeral. So it's got a real charm to it, I would say.
I agree. I don't think of the yellow lume as being Fotino. No. Like to me, it makes sense for the color scheme. It breaks up the black and white. It brings a bit of warmth to it. I like that there's not a ton of lume. There's just enough to get you the time. The white seconds hand is amazing. To me, that's like,
I agree.
It makes the watch.
Now you see it. And you know what? I remember the web page that was developed for the collab actually started with that video in, was it?
It's in the desert by LA. It's out by Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree,
yeah.
And that was the color. That was the predominant color, actually. Someone did think about that, and I liked it. And 40 millimeters, so very wearable.
Extremely wearable. I mean, I on paper would say this is like the largest watch I can wear comfortably. It doesn't feel like a big watch to me at all.
And in black. Anyone out there from the sartorial world will recognize that black's a little bit slimming. Exactly. So this does probably feel a little bit smaller in many ways.
I agree.
This is IWC in the modern age in many ways. It's got the materials aspect to it, the innovation. It's got the sort of lineage in the aviation aspect. Yeah. It's all there.
I totally agree. And I had an IWC Mark 17. Yeah, Mark 17? Yeah, Mark 17 with the sort of altimeter style date. That was the first like modern luxury watch I ever got. Early in my time at Hodinkee, I guess 2012. We did a project with them, and part of the deal was getting some watches. So I was able to get a Mark 17. I was like 22, had just moved to New York City. Like I had no business having that watch, and I loved it. And I wore it everywhere, and it made me feel a part of the community and a part of the industry, and sort of made me feel like an adult, you know? Yeah. And I loved it, and I eventually sold it. I was moving apartments, and I needed to, so I did, and I missed it. And I was only without it maybe a year and a half, 2 years, maybe even less than that. And so when the opportunity came along, I was like, I really need an IWC Pilot back in the collection. And I know you'll appreciate this, the people at IWC are incredible. Yeah. Like really some of the best people in the industry. From top to bottom, from Chris and Christian at the top, all the way down to the folks who work in the Rodeo boutique and the Madison boutique in LA and New York. Everyone's amazing. There's a really good company culture, and I'm fortunate to get to work with them some of the time, and it's always a pleasure. Like I genuinely enjoy it. I love the product, but the people really, to me, kind of like complete the package.
Are you okay with dogs?
Yeah, love dogs.
Benji's coming on in. Here he is.
Hey.
Dude, of course you're okay with dogs. You've got your own dog at home. Sorry, but Benji's here.
Hey, Benji. Oh, yeah, love dogs.
He always makes a feature. Cheers, Andrew. Thanks, boy. He always features. It's funny because I've also, it's no secret, I love the brand and have worked with them as well for years. And I think only in recent times have I really understood them. When I've gone there to the manufacturer and I've really understood what it is. Because with watches, we could lay out 50 on the table and each model speaks to something different from the making, the manufacturing, the people, the ambition of what they're actually trying to achieve. And
Agreed.
The sort of engineering side of IWC, and it's not about fine finishing, it's about robustness, it's about size of movement, it's about it, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
I couldn't agree more.
Really, really cool. And
even the factory is amazing because it's part of their creation as well, right? Like Chris, the CEO, Chris Granger, designed the manufacturer, and it's almost like one of their watches, like they've designed everything from the building in which the products are made down to like, this is not an IWC strap, but down to like the buckles on their straps. Everything is theirs, and it's really...
It has to be up there with one of the most beautiful manufacturers out there. It's a pavilion, for anyone who's not seen it, it's absolutely stunning.
Looks like a Mies van der Rohe building. I mean, like...
I remember cantilevers everywhere.
When they had the opening, I remember Chris and I ended up having like a 20-minute conversation about like how they chose the right chairs for the conference rooms, and like...
It's obsessive.
Yeah, it's great.
It's
I love
obsessive.
it. It's exactly the kind of thing I like.
And what strap have you got on there, just because people will ask, I'm sure?
Yeah, this is a NATO from Crown and Caliber. It's a single pass NATO, so the watch sits nice and close to the wrist. Before that, I was doing what my old colleague and good friend James Stacy did, which was snipping off the backs of NATOs. But this is adjustable. It's great. They'll do it with black hardware, which I love. And yeah, the strap is great, and they're another business where like, their customer service is awesome. You order things, they swap the hardware for you, so it arrives all ready to put on your watch. Like, they do an awesome job. So I own actually a bunch of their straps, specifically these kind of like, I think they call them chevrons, I think is what they're called.
Looks great neck.
I love it. And for a trip like this where it's a bit warm out and all that, I don't have to worry about getting a leather strap all gross. And yeah.
Top man. Agreed. Listen, the one kicker, before I ask you another question I have in mind for watches, let's move on to the cameras, because
of course,
you did say, hey, listen, I'm traveling to the UK. I've got two cameras, and I've got two lenses, and we've got new and old, relatively, in relative terms. We've got new and old going on here. So we thought, and I know you get lots of questions from people out there about your photography and the setups you go for. So what have we got here between these two? Yeah,
so here we've got, both of the cameras are new-ish. This one's a little bit older. So here we've got a Leica M Type 240. So this is a couple of years old. I've had it since 2018, I guess. And it was a few years old when I got it. I'm very proud of the fact that finally now I think more of the brassing on it is mine than wasn't, It came with some wear, but I think more of it is mine now. But it's an MP, so it's kind of meant to be the old like photojournalist style camera. There's no red dot on the front, just the little Leica script on top. Which my wife likes to make fun of me because like I'm the guy, I'll pay more to not have the brand name on it, which was the case with this.
But the Leica logo there is absolutely stunning.
It's
the way
beautiful.
That's been done.
And I love that like when you're walking around with it, right, like that's for you. You see it, but nobody sees the front. I love this camera. I mean, it's been my primary camera for my personal work for since 2018, so for quite a while now. In terms of cameras like this, I see no reason to need to replace it anytime soon. It's a 24 megapixel sensor. It's nothing crazy, but for the kind of work I do, like I don't really need more. And I love the camera. I love the way it feels in the hand. It's nice and heavy. Everything's nice and tactile. It looks worn in. And then the lens I have on here is a 50 millimeter Leica Summilux. This is a limited edition they did a few years ago, so it has this kind of scalloped design. It's all brass, so it's heavy. I mean, you'll see when I put it down, like the camera tips forward sometimes a little bit because the lens is so heavy, but it's all modern optics. So it's effectively the modern 50mm Summilux, but it's been designed to look like the one from the 50s and 60s. I find the pictures that come out of it they're closer to what I want in my head than when I'm using other lenses.
Does that tend to be the camera you take on holiday as well as what you use for work projects?
It does. I mean, if I'm going just on holiday, like just for fun, I'm not going to be doing any, kind of like intentional shooting. This is the setup I take with me. It's relatively lightweight. It's easy to pack. I have a little pouch I can tuck it into and wrap it up. The battery charge actually holds quite well, so it's great for just walking around. This camera is more of a multi-purpose camera. This is a Leica SL2 that I picked up earlier this year. I've been using these cameras, going back to the SL1, almost 10 years ago, and finally kind of added one to my lineup. But yeah, this is nice because I can use it for personal work, but I can also use it for clients, for watch photography. The M is essentially useless for watch photography. It's a bit tough.
And I'll say something controversial here, but I actually think the Q is also not for watch photography.
Interesting.
Because I know a lot of people and colleagues of ours do use the Q, and it's a wonderful object, especially to take on holiday because it's so functional and useful. Fixed lens. But I always find it's just not right. It feels like it's just you're too far from the action.
Interesting.
I love the SL1, which is what I've got upstairs, and actually, although the M is what it is, for me it's the aesthetic story that you want to be part of that from a Leica perspective.
Yeah.
This has grown on me aesthetically. It's boldness.
I agree.
It's something really strong from a design perspective.
I agree.
Super nice to use, ergonomic. This is much better than the SL1 because I think you've got a bit more of a reworked.
It has a nice grip. I mean, I reviewed the SL1 when it first came out, and I was at Bloomberg, and if I remember correctly, kind of the main thrust of the interview was like, the images are amazing, the user experience needs some work.
Yeah.
And so I kind of didn't pay attention to the SL for a long time. And then the 2 came out and I started hearing recommendations, and I quite like it. And it's nice because I can throw, autofocus lenses on it. It can use a wide variety of lenses. You can adapt lenses, which is what I've done here. So this is an M adapter, so I can use my manual focus M lenses on this camera. Including this lens, which is a 90mm lens. It's called the Tele Elmerit M. Yeah, it's a mouthful. It's a 90mm lens, f2.8 aperture, maximum aperture. It was made in the 80s, and I was lucky enough, the folks, I've been a long time, no free ads here, but I've been a long time fan of the Leica store in San Francisco.
And they have an amazing pre-owned business.
They do.
Unlike a lot of other luxury goods businesses out there.
They do.
And they're very keen to bring you in on that.
It's incredible. And they're so nice and so knowledgeable. And many of the people who work there are just personal friends at this point. They have a beautiful gallery. Like, I've discovered so much work, like actual photography, through being in that store. And even when I lived in New York and the Soho store, which sadly is no more, when Leica Soho was 5 minutes from my office, I still bought all my gear from the opposite side of the country. Now I'm a bit closer, but Sean, who owns that store, and Camera West, which is his bigger camera store, kind of knew I was looking for some cool vintage lenses, and he was able to get a camera store in Dallas, Texas, went out of business, and their entire storeroom needed to be liquidated. And he bought the whole thing. So he pulled up a giant truck, and they loaded the entire old stock room onto the truck, and he had no idea what was going to show up in California.
Wow.
He knew there'd be some good things. And there were a few of these lenses that were literally new old stock, like still sealed in their boxes, cellophane, the whole thing. So he very carefully cut the cellophane, opened it up just to make sure there was no like fungus or anything in the lens, which can happen from moisture. And once he knew it was good, he sent it to me and showed up at the Hodinkee office and kind of had everybody pile around the desk, and we like unboxed it and had the original paper warranty and like a prepaid envelope to their old headquarters address that they haven't been at for 20 years. And it was really special. So
did you ever see Storage Wars?
I have, yeah.
I used to love that show. Where
it's basically that, but for cameras.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's not seen it, I think it was on Discovery at some point, and people would all crowd around those storage locations, and you'd start bidding. Would it be a bid before you? I think what they did is, they opened the gate on the locker. And then, based on what you could see, you couldn't go in and handle it. You couldn't look at it.
Yeah.
What you could see, it was a bidding process, and you never knew what were in the boxes. But you could
Exactly.
look at a few things. If you see something that sort of tipped you off, like, okay, there's a bit of something interesting there. There's a Louis Vuitton trunk in the corner. It's like, okay, wonder what's in those boxes.
Yeah.
I could just imagine how excited.
It's kind of what it was, and it's amazing. And I use this lens all the time. 90 is not a super popular focal length anyway. It's even less popular in the Leica world because most people on Leica are shooting rangefinders. It can be a bit hard to focus these 90mm lenses with a rangefinder, especially if you're shooting open, your depth of field isn't huge. It can be difficult. It's much easier on the SL because you have focus peaking and all of that. But I love 90. I like the compression you get from it. I like the ability to kind of take a scene and you have to make choices. You have to choose what's important. You have to choose how you want to frame things. I find it really creatively fulfilling. I love shooting 90, and I shoot it both for my personal work, and it's also a focal length I use a lot for commercial things.
I'm admiring your out of focus theme that you've got going on at the moment, which is just a little tease in many respects, which I'm really enjoying.
I'm tomorrow. I mean, we're shooting this on a Tuesday, and tomorrow and Thursday I have shoots planned to finish a project in that style that I've been working on for 4 years now.
Wow.
Here in London at a place called the John Soane Museum. And so I'm shooting there tomorrow and Thursday to hopefully wrap this project. I'm excited about it, but also like kind of ready to get my brain onto the next thing. So I'm hoping I can get it where I want it.
Good man.
Yeah.
Is there a camera or a lens that you're still hunting that you think down the line would be lovely?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, there's always things. I'm very lucky. I have a third camera that's kind of in my usual rotation, which is a Leica M6 film camera, a 35mm film camera that my wife purchased for me for my 30th birthday. Nice. We found a used one, and because I know you'll appreciate this, it was one for the Japanese market. And so it actually has both the Leica script on top and the red dot. It's got double branding, which is not typical for me, but only in Japan did they do that. Other markets, it was one or the other. It was either the P with no dot and the script, or it was the standard model with the dot with no script. So I was able to find it, and so I use that a lot for shooting film. But yeah, I think honestly, I could probably use the camera sitting here plus the M6 because I do like shooting film, and I'll hit my creative limitations way before I'll hit the limitations of the gear. There's nothing I want to do that I can't do because these aren't good enough or don't do what I want. It's a matter of pushing myself, pushing my eyes, pushing my brain. But yeah, there's always, I like shooting Polaroid. I have an old SX70 Polaroid camera that I love. I think if I were to really invest in serious gear in another way, probably do something stupid like buy a 4x5 camera or some really archaic, expensive, annoying to use film camera.
I recently got a medium format, which I'm absolutely loving.
Yeah.
And I totally relate to that point that you made about seeing the image in your mind, and sometimes it's hard to really recreate that. And the medium format color is special in the sense that it's blown me away.
Yeah, and the way those lenses render when you have the bigger sensor, you have a different focal plane, it sounds silly. It's not just bigger, right? It's a totally different set of optics. And it looks different. It feels different. The things you would shoot with it and how you shoot them is different than how you work with these. And
I'm secretly very excited about a camera project I've been working on for the last year, which is that I've got a daughter who's coming up to 2, and I've left these instant travel Polaroid cameras, the ones that have become quite popular again now. I've had 2 of them drifting around the house for the last couple of months, and they're both almost fully used. And I don't know what's on them, and I haven't really used it. So I'm excited to get that developed and see what the hell we've got. Because a 1-year-old's view of the world will be one that I hope she can enjoy in the future.
I'm gonna steal that from you.
I know. I thought that could be an idea you'd enjoy.
It's a great idea.
Watches. Is there a watch out there that you've got your eye on within the next, say, 12 months you would like to
Is there a
target?
watch I have in the next 12 months? That's a great question.
Or even one that you've looked at recently and thought, you know what, I really love that, and I would try to do something in the future to own one of those.
I mean, something you'll know that's close to both of our hearts is after working on the catalog for Resonance, I think I finally need to add one of those to the collection.
Yes.
So that's coming. It's just I'm still debating between one or two models. So that's
the tricky part about this conversation, and I should have remembered we've talked about this already. The problem is one of those models that you're umming and ahhing about because it's between the Type 1 and something else.
And something else.
Which hasn't yet come out.
It hasn't.
And that's the tricky part.
And I was just able to see a prototype the other day, and now the real thinking begins. You know, it's a real toss-up, and both is not an option. No. So I have to make a decision. But yeah, either the Type 1 round in black. Or this new thing would be great. Otherwise, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm really excited about some of the smaller brands that have come out recently. That are more affordable. I know our
Anomas of the world.
Exactly, our mutual friend and former guest on this show, Matteo, who I spoke to this morning. He was very jealous that I was hanging out around the Barbican this morning. But yeah, I think things like that really excite me. I think there's, again, you've been doing this a long time as well now, and the amount of energy and excitement and creativity in the industry now feels really special to me.
I agree.
And I'd love to kind of capture some of that by, collecting some of those pieces and, kind of shaping my collection around where the industry's going. Because for me, my collection largely is it's a documentation of my career. It's a documentation of my life. I said it to somebody the other day, but I could never have imagined when I first got into watches, how much these weird little things would change my life, and they really have. And so I like collecting watches that are related to people I know, moments in the industry, moments in my career. I mean, this obviously commemorates a trip and a place and a professional project all kind of in one. And honestly, this does much of the same. I mean, it's folks in Switzerland who I like, my old colleagues who I like, the company we built, what we were doing, and then the fact that it's the main watch I travel with. So for the last however many years, most of the places I've gone in the world, this is what's been on my wrist. It's what I wore while my wife and I were driving across the country from New York to LA. It was this on my wrist. So yeah, those memories are all wrapped up. Which is good and bad, because when it comes time where maybe I should sell something, it's tough, because there's honestly maybe, I mean, I don't have that many watches. I have maybe 10 to 12 pieces at a time, but which I know is a lot, but in our context, not a lot. But there's only maybe one or two that don't have a really important memory. And so I find I'd rather buy less, but buy things that I know are going to be important, as opposed to just buying and selling all the time.
We could go on for a lot longer than this.
We probably could.
And I know that I'm looking at Britt there, and she's thinking this is going to be the biggest document she's going to have to send over to me in a few days' time, and it's never going to load. Truth be told, this is absolutely true. We normally do these videos, and they're about 45, 50 minutes. And Britt on a Sunday night tries to send me the file. It's so massive, it takes me another 2-3 days to download. We're never going to get there unless we wrap it up, Stephen. Thank you very much for sharing everything.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Lovely to see you as always.
Good to see you as always.
Guys, thanks for joining.